Hey, what's up, golfers? We're over here at the Union Lake driving range today. Testing out my new Shrixon Z785 forged irons. We got the KBS Tours C-Taper X130 shafts in. So far they feel amazing. Really can control the ball with them a lot. They feel awesome. So we're also rocking the Hack Motion Advanced 3D sensor today. One of my favorite train aids to use. Really helped a lot of my players quickly make some awesome adjustments to their club face control, and really help their ball flight and also their scores, which is always nice, right? So what we'll talk about today, we're just going to go through a couple quick things. So we'll see a lot of tendencies, right? We're going to show you one little drill today that will help a lot of our over-the-top players, okay? So a lot of the over-top players, what we'll see is they tend to get set up. At setup, the first move will be pulling the hands to the inside, okay? So they pull the hands to the inside. Right away, they get the wrist to a flatter position, and that's about the only time that wrist is going to be flat for the most of the rest of the swing, okay? From there, we'll see a lot of lifting, not a lot of rotation. Right hip tends to bump to the side. Right elbow tends to get up and high. And we'll see this actually, we'll start getting a lot of extension in that lead wrist. I'll see 50, 45 is a pretty average number for me for our amateurs, where we'll get a lot of that going on with that lead wrist at the top, okay? So if I were to show you the better players, some of our better players, what they'll do is they'll take the club back a little bit wider, right? They'll hinge that right hand there, you know, all those good motions. And when we get to the top, we get about anywhere from 15 down to 0 degrees. Some people will have a little bit of flexion at the top. That's not very common for our amateurs. Dustin Johnson, Brooks, and the guys that do that is definitely more of an oddity. We don't see a lot of amateurs coming in off the street doing that. If they do, they don't hold it, or they don't do it the same way that Dustin and Brooks do. But anyway, you know, so what we'll see, if this right hand comes inside and lifts over the top, the right hand, the wrist is almost straighter than the lead wrist, right? And we want that reversed, okay? So a good way to feel this motion, or a good way to feel to get that hand in that position, when we get set up here, we'll do a little drill. We get set up, I want you to take your hands and put your hands lead wrist to what they would feel like at impact, okay? So right here I got my lead wrist at 0 degree, and now it's right there, -2 of flexion, okay? So -2 flexion means I have 2 degrees of flexion going on, or slight bowing in the wrist. For me, when I have -2 with my irons, or 2 degrees of flexion, we'll just call it 2 degrees of flexion, is when I have my best. I usually average about 10 degrees of extension at the top, get ourselves back down to 2 degrees, and hit a nice little tight draw with those numbers, okay? For me, I can see when my numbers, or this will get any bit of extension at the hit. For me, it's usually a missed hit. I haven't hit too many good shots yet when I get my wrist looking like that down at the hit. It's always a better strike for me. I always create a nice draw for me, a nice tight draw when I have a 0 or 2 degrees of flexion at impact. So when we get set up, we're going to take our wrist to impact. What we're going to do is we're going to try and keep the face straight, going straight back from our target line to the butt of the club is in the mid of the right thigh. From there, we're just going to take this right hand, fold it back while I reconnect my right arm to the side of my body, like such. And right there, now I got my wrist at 3 degrees of flexion, so almost a flat wrist, okay? Now if I just take my right shoulder, turn it back behind me to the top, I got 8 degrees, 7 degrees, and yeah, right there is actually 3 degrees now of extension. So almost a perfectly flat wrist, okay? And then what we want people to feel from here, if they could think about just getting your right shoulder down to the ball, right shoulder down to the ball, feeling that same lead wrist that we started with at impact, and then we want to reconnect the left arm to the side and try and finish this with the hands just hitting, boom, right in about here and hit hold. It will look something like this. So that ball right there, I got myself to 7 degrees of extension at the top, and actually had myself to 7 degrees of flexion at impact, okay? And that was a nice little draw on that one. A little more bowing than we do, but when we're doing these drills, and if we want it to carry over, we almost want to be excessive with the motion, or the new motion that we're trying to instill into our swing. give it a try.